They say time heals all wounds, but no one tells you what to do when the wound walks back into your classroom wearing your ex-lover's eyes. I was grading essays that evening when I realized the top student in my class, Eli Porter, had the same crooked smile as Daniel. The same Daniel I once loved and lost to silence, fear, and everything that made love between two men impossible 20 years ago in small-town Ohio. It started as a whisper of recognition, a ghost from the past lingering in the way Eli spoke, his meticulous mannerisms, the tilt of his head when he thought. But the real punch to the gut came on parent night, when Daniel himself stepped through the auditorium door. He looked older, his hair touched with gray, his jaw sharper, his confidence quieter, but those eyes, God, those eyes still held the same storm that wrecked me all those years ago. I froze. The paper I was holding, Eli's perfect essay about hidden truths, trembled between my fingers. "Mr. Hayes," he said, his voice steady yet charged. "It's been a long time." If only he knew how long I'd waited to hear that voice again. The night pressed on, filled with polite conversations and forced smiles. Parents mingled, students boasted, and teachers nodded through small talk. But for me, every second was a war between my past and the man I'd become. I was no longer the scared 20-year-old who loved in shadows. I was Mr. Hayson, English teacher, calm, professional, respected. And yet, standing across that gymnasium, Daniel's presence shattered that facade with a single look. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to have a son, especially one who turned out to be my student. But fate, it seemed, loved irony. Eli caught the tension almost instantly. "You two know each other?" he asked, his tone curious but innocent. Daniel's gaze flickered. "We go way back." My throat tightened. "A lifetime ago," I managed, forcing a smile. Later that night, after the event ended, I stood alone in my empty classroom, surrounded by the faint scent of dry erase markers and teenage dreams. I was erasing the board when I heard the door click open. Daniel stood there, hands in his pockets, looking like sin wrapped in nostalgia. "I didn't know you were here, Ethan," he said softly. "Not until Eli mentioned your class. I wasn't sure I'd come tonight. And yet, here you are." His chuckle was quiet, but familiar. "You always did make it hard to stay away." I turned, the marker still in my hand, pretending to care about the eraser line I missed. "We're not 20 anymore, Daniel. We can't afford to play the same games." "Who said I came here to play?" That hit deeper than I expected. The silence between us thickened until the sound of rain began to patter against the windows. He stepped closer, just enough for me to smell his cologne, faint cedar and regret. "I heard about your work here," Daniel said. "You're making a difference. I'm proud of you." I almost laughed. "Proud? After vanishing without a word?" He sighed, guilt shadowing his face. "You know why I left? My father. Your father was a coward. I cut in. And so were you." The words hung there, sharp and unforgiving. But beneath them was the ache of years spent wondering what if. Daniel took another step forward, close enough that the air between us felt electric. "You think I didn't want to come back? You think I didn't spend nights wondering where you were? If you were happy?" I wanted to hate him. God knows I tried. But the truth was, I'd never stopped loving him. And that was the cruelest part. The rain outside turned heavier, thunder rumbling like the universe mocking me. "Eli doesn't know," Daniel said finally. "About us." "Of course he doesn't. How could he?" I snapped. "You built a life, Daniel. You moved on." His eyes glistened. "I built a lie." I froze. He exhaled, his voice trembling. "Eli isn't just my son. He's the only piece of my life that's ever made sense. But the rest, everything I built, was just to fill the space you left behind." My heart cracked open like it had been waiting for permission. "You don't get to say that," I whispered. "Not after everything." Daniel reached out but stopped halfway. "Then tell me to leave, Ethan. Tell me to go and I will." Couldn't. Instead, I turned away, staring out the rain-streaked window. "Tomorrow's a school day," I said, voice barely steady. "You should get home." When I looked back, He was gone. But the ghost of his presence lingered warm, painful, impossible to ignore. The following weeks became a blur. Teaching Eli was like teaching a memory. He was bright, passionate, kind, the kind of student teachers dream of. And yet, every time I looked at him, I saw the fragments of Daniel, the way his laughter lit up a room, the quiet determination in his eyes. It was torture. Then one afternoon, Eli stayed after class. "Mr. Hayes?" he asked, hesitant. "Did you know my dad a long time ago?" My pen froze midair. "Why do you ask?" "Because he looks at you weird," Eli said simply. "Like he's remembering something he's not supposed to." A chill ran through me. I smiled the best I could. "Sometimes adults just have complicated histories, Eli." He nodded, thoughtful. "Yeah." He said the same thing. The innocence in his tone nearly broke me. Because buried under those words was the truth neither Daniel nor I dared to speak aloud. Our history wasn't just complicated. It was forbidden, unfinished, and still alive. That night, Daniel called. His voice was quiet, raw. "Ethan, can we talk? I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just one last time." I hesitated, but something inside me, some masochistic hope, said yes. When he arrived, he looked different. Less like the man I remembered, more like someone ready to be honest. He handed me a letter. "I wrote this years ago. I never sent it. I think you deserve to read it." I unfolded the paper, my hands trembling as the words blurred before my eyes. "I loved you. I still do. I was a coward, and I'll regret it every day of my life." I looked up at him. "You kept this." "I kept you, Ethan. Every memory, every word, every goddamn heartbeat." My defenses crumbled. The rain outside began again like it always did when we were together, as if the world knew how fragile this was. And when he stepped closer, when our foreheads touched for the first time in 2 decades, it felt like the past had finally exhaled. The night Daniel came back into my life, I thought I could handle it. I was wrong. For days, his presence lingered in the corners of my mind like an old song I couldn't stop humming. Every time Eli smiled in class, I saw Daniel's reflection. Every time the rain fell, I remembered the way his breath felt against my skin that night, soft, trembling, desperate. But the universe doesn't let you rewrite the past without consequences. One Thursday afternoon, just as the autumn leaves began to scatter across the school courtyard, Eli came into my classroom long after the final bell. His face was pale, his backpack half-zipped. Something in his eyes, a mixture of confusion and betrayal, made my heart stall. "Mr. Hayes," he said, voice low, "can I ask you something personal?" I forced a smile. "Sure, Eli. What's on your mind?" He hesitated, glancing at the door like he was afraid someone might hear. "Were you close to my dad?" My chest tightened. Here it was. I took a breath. "Why do you ask?" He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Because I found an old photo in a box in our attic. It's you and him. You're at a lake, he's got his arm around you. You both look happy." The air left my lungs like a punch. That photo. We'd taken it the summer before Daniel's father found out about us. The day everything fell apart. "Where did you—" I began. But Eli cut me off. "My mom said it was from college," he said quickly. "That you were just friends." "But she lied, didn't she?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. His jaw clenched. "You were more than friends." The silence between us was louder than thunder. That evening, the sky cracked open with rain again, as if the story was doomed to play out under storm clouds. I stayed late, sitting alone at my desk, trying to figure out what to say, what to do, what line not to cross. When the door opened, I didn't even need to look up. I knew it was Daniel. "You told him," I said flatly. He froze. "He found the photo?" "He confronted me, Daniel. What did you think would happen? That we could just pretend forever?" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't tell him anything. I swear. He must have gone digging. He's smart like that." "He's your son," I snapped. "Of course he's smart." Daniel walked closer, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Ethan, I didn't come here to fight. I came because I knew you'd be beating yourself up over this. I laughed bitterly. You always knew me too well. His expression softened. He deserves the truth. But maybe, not from us. Not yet. You think lies will protect him? No, he said quietly. But timing might. We stood there, facing each other as the rain smeared the windows like tears. I never told him about us, Daniel continued, because I didn't want him to grow up thinking love was something to hide. I thought if I buried the past, I could protect him. Protect him from what? From becoming me, he whispered. Those words broke something in me. Before I could respond, a voice cut through the air, young, sharp, trembling. From what, Dad? We both turned. Eli was standing in the doorway, soaked from the rain, his eyes wide with disbelief. Eli, Daniel started, but Eli held up a hand. No, I want to hear it. What exactly did you want to protect me from? The truth. Daniel stepped forward. You shouldn't be here. Eli's voice cracked. I shouldn't have to be. You both keep acting like I'm a kid, like I can't handle whatever this is. But I'm not stupid. His gaze darted between us. You two were in love, weren't you? Neither of us spoke. We didn't have to. The truth was written in every glance, every breath, every unspoken memory between us. Eli's face twisted, confusion giving way to hurt. So all this time, my dad's been lying to me. And Yumi, teacher, you just went along with it? Eli, please. I began, but he shook his head. Don't you dare make this about protecting me. You both just didn't want to face what you did. He turned and stormed out before either of us could stop him. The next morning, the entire school buzzed with whispers. Eli hadn't shown up to class. Daniel texted me he's gone. Took my truck. I don't know where he is. I left campus before lunch. Every rule I'd ever lived by as a teacher shattered in that moment. I wasn't thinking about consequences, only about finding him before the world could hurt him like it had hurt us. Hours later, I found him where I should have looked first, the lake. Our lake. He was sitting on the old wooden dock, knees pulled to his chest, staring at the gray water. I walked slowly, my shoes crunching against wet leaves. You picked a hell of a place to run to. He didn't look up. Guess it runs in the family. I sighed and sat beside him, the cold would seeping through my clothes. You look just like him when you're angry. He huffed. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. Silence fell again, heavy but honest this time. Finally, he spoke. Was it real? What? The two of you. Was it real? I looked at the lake, remembering the laughter, the fear, the stolen kisses under summer stars. It was the most real thing I've ever known. He swallowed hard. Then why did he leave you? I hesitated. Because back then, loving another man wasn't something people accepted. Especially not in this town. His father found out, threatened to disown him. He chose survival. Eli nodded slowly, his voice barely a whisper. And you? Did you forgive him? I turned to him. I tried to, but forgiveness isn't a one-time thing. It's something you do over and over until the pain dulls. He blinked rapidly, fighting tears. I wish he'd told me. I wish either of you had trusted me enough to know I wouldn't hate you. I felt the lump rise in my throat. He was scared, Eli. We both were. Eli finally looked at me. Are you still? The question hit me harder than I expected. When Daniel arrived, his eyes found his son first, then me. He froze a few steps away, chest heaving from running. But Eli stood up, his face streaked with tears and rain. No, you don't get to talk first. Daniel's jaw tightened. Eli took a step closer. You always told me to be honest, to be brave, to never hide who I am. And all this time, you were hiding yourself. Daniel's voice cracked. I wanted to protect you. From what? From knowing you're human? From knowing you can love someone who happens to be a man? Eli's hands trembled. You think that would have ruined me? Daniel's shoulders slumped. No. I thought it would ruin you to see how the world ruined me. Eli's anger faltered. Then maybe the world needs to change, not you. The silence that followed was different this time, soft, heavy, cleansing. Daniel looked at him, eyes red. I'm sorry, Eli. For all of it. Eli wiped his face, breathing shakily. Don't be sorry for loving someone, Dad. Be sorry for thinking you had to stop. Daniel closed the distance then, pulling him into a tight embrace. And as I watched them, something inside me, the guilt, the fear, the what-ifs finally began to loosen. Later, when the storm passed and the lake stilled to glass, Daniel came to sit beside me again. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not giving up on him. On us. I smiled faintly. You're assuming I haven't. He turned, his eyes steady. You haven't. If you had, you wouldn't be here. We sat there for a while, watching the last light fade behind the trees. The world felt quieter, like it was holding its breath for whatever came next. I don't know what happens now, I said. Neither do I, Daniel admitted. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we just start over, as we are. No lies, no pretending. I looked at him, at the man I once knew and the man he'd become. You think we get that kind of second chance? He smiled, the kind of small, tired smile that holds a lifetime of regret and hope. I think we've already started it. For the first time in decades, I let myself believe him. The next week, Eli came back to school. He walked into class like nothing had happened. But when the bell rang, he lingered. Mr. Hayes, he said, a little hesitant now. About my dad. I smiled gently. You don't have to explain anything, Eli. He's a good man. He nodded. He said the same thing about you. Then, after a pause, he added, you two deserve to be happy. Whatever that looks like. As he turned to go, I felt a strange warmth in my chest, something I hadn't felt in years. Maybe forgiveness didn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it came in quiet classrooms, in the spaces between what was said and what was finally understood. That night, Daniel and I met again, not in secrecy, not in shame, but in the open air of a small diner off the highway. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a rekindling of the past. It was simply two men, sharing the same table again after a lifetime of silence. He reached across the booth, his fingers brushing mine. I missed this, he said. I smiled. You missed the bad coffee? He laughed softly. No. I missed being able to look at you without feeling like I was stealing something from the world. Outside, the neon sign flickered, casting red light across his face. He looked at peace. So did I. Maybe that was the point all along, not to rewrite what we lost, but to honor what survived. The weeks that followed felt like stepping into a new life we hadn't dared to imagine. Daniel and I didn't rush. We didn't leap into some cinematic reunion, nor did we pretend the past hadn't left scars. Instead, we moved carefully, learning to exist in the same space again without breaking everything we touched. Eli became the bridge we hadn't realized we needed. He was still sharp, still fearless, but now he carried the weight of understanding, not judgment. One Friday afternoon, he approached me in the staff lounge, a sly grin on his face. You and Dad are finally talking like adults. I raised an eyebrow. Adults? You mean like we're going to have a business meeting or something? No, he said, rolling his eyes. Like people who don't lie to each other anymore. People who actually, he paused, searching for the right words. Like each other. I felt a flicker of warmth. We've always liked each other. He smirked. Yeah, but now it's not forbidden anymore. That's the big difference. I nodded, realizing he was right. The fear that had haunted us for years, the fear of judgment, of exposure, of being rejected, was finally weakening. That evening, Daniel and I met at our old lake spot. The sun was setting in fiery streaks of orange and purple, the water reflecting the sky like molten glass. I never thought we'd sit here again, I said quietly. Neither did I, he admitted, letting out a slow breath. But look at us. Here we are. Still alive. Still breathing. I turned to him, the tension of decades melting under the soft glow of the sunset. Alive, yes, but are we really living, Daniel? Or just surviving? He reached out, taking my hand in his. Maybe this is the start of actually living. No more shadows, no more running. We owe that to ourselves. And to Eli. I nodded. And what about the rest of the world? Daniel smiled faintly. Let them deal with it. We don't have to hide anymore. And for the first time, it felt like I truly believed him. The next morning, we decided to take a small but brave step. We invited Eli to breakfast at a little diner downtown, the kind with vinyl booths and a jukebox that played songs nobody remembered the words to. Dad, you and Mr. Hayes don't have to be subtle anymore, Eli said, sliding into the booth. I've got your backs. Just act like you're not secretly in love with each other. Okay? Daniel chuckled, ruffling Eli's hair. We'll try. I grinned. We'll do our best. But no promises about subtlety. Eli's laughter rang out, bright and free, and in that moment I realized something important. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were reclaiming life, joy, and the love that had been denied for far too long. Soon after, the town began to notice. Small things, first a lingering glance here, a hand held under the table there. Gossip sparked, whispers ran through the school corridors, and social media quietly buzzed. But unlike the fears of our youth, this time we faced it together. We didn't hide. We didn't shrink. Every skeptical glance or raised eyebrow was met with calm confidence. One afternoon, Eli approached me after class, a wide grin on his face. You and Dad are basically celebrities now. People are talking, but you're like role models or something. I laughed. Role models? That's new. He shrugged. It's true. You guys are proof that love doesn't have to fit in a box, that it can survive, and that it can be beautiful. Daniel, standing in the doorway, caught my eye and winked. That subtle gesture, simple, human, felt like victory. The real challenge came when we faced those unwilling to accept us. Parents at school who had known Daniel for years, conservative colleagues, even old friends who couldn't reconcile the past with the present. We navigated it carefully, firmly, and without shame. Every whispered comment, every disapproving stare was met with honesty. We didn't argue or fight, we existed. Our love was our statement. One evening, after a long day of parent meetings, Daniel and I walked back to the lake. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. Do you ever think about what life would have been like if we hadn't left? I asked. All the time, he said. But then I remember that the life we have now is stronger because we survived the worst. We know what it's worth. I nodded, squeezing his hand. It's worth everything. He leaned closer, resting his forehead against mine. Then let's promise to never let fear dictate us again. Not for Eli, not for us, not for anyone. I promise, I whispered. Eli, meanwhile, became our greatest ally. He insisted on being part of small family events, proudly introducing us to friends, sharing our story in a way that was brave and unflinching. One Saturday, at the local fall festival, he tugged on our hands and led us through the crowd. Come on, let's show everyone what happiness looks like. People stared, some whispered, but Eli's smile and the naturalness of our presence left no room for doubt. For the first time, the town saw love unafraid, not scandalous, not hidden, just human. We laughed, shared cotton candy, and rode the Ferris wheel. At the top, looking out over the town below, I felt an almost surreal sense of peace. Daniel squeezed my hand. We made it, Ethan. After all those years, we actually made it. I smiled, leaning into him. We did. And this time, we're not leaving. As the seasons changed, so did our lives. We continued teaching, continued loving, and continued being visible, not perfectly, not without challenges, but with integrity and courage. Eli thrived in school, confident and proud of his father and me. He even joked that one day he'd write a book about our story. I laughed, but inside, I thought maybe he would. Maybe he should. Our journey was messy, painful, and beautiful, and it deserved to be remembered. One winter evening, Daniel and I stood on the porch of his small house, the first home we shared openly together. Snow fell lightly, frosting the ground in white. I never imagined this, I said softly. Being here together, Not hiding, not afraid. Daniel wrapped his arms around me. I always imagined it, but I never believed it could happen. Now I do. I rested my head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. We survived everything. We can survive anything. Together, he added. Together? I repeated, closing my eyes. The town eventually settled into acceptance. Some never did, but those voices became background noise. What mattered was the love we nurtured and shared, a love that had been tested, torn, and almost lost, but ultimately survived. Eli often reminded us of that in the most unexpected ways. One afternoon, he said, "You guys taught me something important. That love isn't about hiding or fearing. It's about being brave, even when the world tells you to be silent." And in that statement, the entire story of our lives was summed up. Daniel and I continued to build a life together filled with laughter, small adventures, quiet nights, and unwavering support. We traveled, explored new corners of the country, but always returned to that small town, our lake, and the people who mattered most. Sometimes, when the sun set just right, we'd sit together, holding hands, watching Eli run along the shore or play in the yard. And in those moments, the past, the fear, the heartbreak, the long years of separation faded into memory. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We had lost, we had hurt, we had faltered, but we had also found each other again. And in that finding, we discovered something rare and unbreakable. The courage to love, openly and unapologetically. And that, in the end, was more than enough. The rain, the lake, the autumn leaves, they were witnesses to our survival. They held the echoes of stolen kisses, whispered promises, and silent tears. But now, they also held laughter, joy, and the unmistakable rhythm of a family forged not by convention, but by love. Daniel leaned over, pressing a soft kiss to my temple. "You know, we should have done this years ago." I laughed softly. "We would have missed all the drama." He grinned, playful and familiar. "Yeah, but we'd have missed this too." I nodded, feeling the warmth of his hand in mine. "And I wouldn't trade it for the world." Eli ran past us, calling out, "Come on, slowpokes. Don't let the snow melt before we build the biggest snowman ever." I glanced at Daniel. "I think we finally get to have our happy ending." He smiled, and for the first time in decades, I believed him completely. The snow fell gently, the lake glistened, and all the ghosts of the past finally settled, leaving only us together, unafraid, and in love. For the first time, everything felt right. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.